Welcome back into the Sports Source. We'd like to thank Calhoun's for bringing you today's jam-packed show. Our sponsors make this show possible. Go down and watch the SEC tournament at Calhoun's. Okay? Chuck, you almost got up with a sound effect there. All right. Another thing I call bull on, Davenport wouldn't have been hired if UT had used her own Power 5 criteria against her. I've heard that. That is goofy. Chancellors aren't graded by the athletic conference. You do realize that Harvard isn't a Power 5 school. She was the interim president at Cincinnati. That's higher than Chancellor. And Cincinnati has a bigger enrollment than UT. So the Power 5 thing is silly. All right. Welcome in to Mark Pankratz, who, of course, coached on Bruce Pearl's staff while John Currie was over there, so you worked closely with him. Mike Griffith over there, you were the beat writer for the UT basketball team when John Currie was over there. Let me go ahead and put this up first. We have what Kansas State media is kind of the book on John Currie. There we go. We'll let you guys read that. Fundraising, facilities, attendance, PR focused, respected nationally. That's the good. The bad, relationships with coaches. He's a micromanager. He's too compliant with the NCAA rule book. We'll get into that. And he can be cocky. Mark Pankratz, quickly, 30, 45 seconds here. Your thoughts on the hire of John Currie?
I think it was a good hire. I think he's had the experience. He's got obviously the Tennessee ties. But you know, you talk about when he was here with Pearl. He was one of the guys that could rein Coach Pearl in a little bit. And when he left, I thought you saw that with some of the things that happened with Coach Pearl. He was instrumental with us. Helped with the scheduling part of it. I know Coach Pearl gets a lot of that credit, but also John Currie was there when that was going on. I think he's a guy that understands what he's walking into, what it means to be a Tennessee fan base, and I think that experience here is going to bode well for him. You
told me this morning you've talked to a bunch of people over there that worked there when you were there. Their thoughts?
I've talked to 7 to 10 people that are either still there or were there, and all of them are excited about John Currie. All of them think that he's got the demeanor and the want to make all sports really successful. So they're excited about him. So I think that bodes well how we should be.
It's interesting because that's certainly not the reaction from the fan base, and that's not what's making the rounds on social media. Mike Griffith, your thoughts on John Currie?
Well, I think his success was more seen than heard. John wasn't a guy that needed a whole lot of attention. I think he was very efficient. I think he worked hard behind the scenes. Like Mark, I talked to Tony Jones, and he worked hard with Tony Jones on that scheduling, which was some of the best in the country. While he's seen as somewhat cold and distant, he did have the staff over, I believe, when they won the SEC championship to his home. So this is a guy who I think checks all the boxes and touches all the bases. And talking to Blair Kirchhoff, the columnist for the Kansas City Star, not these internet guys, John Currie is very well respected. As far as not getting along with coaches, if you call standing up to a legend and Bill Snyder and not playing a player who could be potentially in trouble with the NCAA, not getting along with your coaches, I say more of it and better off for the UT athletic department.
This coming from internet guy Mike Griffith, SECcountry.com. Long-time newspaper guy.
You ever heard of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, John?
All right, Jimmy, I'm giving this one just to you very quickly. Currie has some fences to mend upon his return. We know that. He's reached out to Philip Fulmer and some other boosters. Are they going to meet him halfway?
I think there are a number of them that will not meet him halfway. I think some feel like that their relationship with him was not good. The thing to also think about, because I think his people skills at Tennessee could have improved a lot, he was also like 26 to 38 years old when he was here. Maybe he has improved on that at Kansas State, but I think there are a lot of them that have already made up their mind. They're not going to deal with John Currie. They don't like him. And so I think there'll be a number that will not meet him halfway.
Somebody told me he always had his blood up. In other words, it's almost like I'm always waiting for the fight. Like, even if it's not, I'm waiting for it.
But you have to look at the guy that he worked with. Mike Hamilton was the nicest guy to everybody, and John Currie sometimes had to be the strong fist.
The good cop, bad cop.
Do that in situations.
The one thing I find interesting, and there's irony here with Philip Fulmer, for years people have said of Majors, he needs to just get over it, forget how it went down, play nice, and be a UT guy. Now you could say Fulmer needs to get over it, forget how it went down, play nice, and be a UT guy. If you watch a story long enough, it flips. Chuck, I'm starting with you on this one. David Blackburn, was he ever a real candidate?
We said one day, we heard somebody in the national media had said not as viable as a candidate as it's being portrayed locally.
You said that on the show.
And that was kind of shot down. And then when it came out, this whole Power 5 sitting athletic director didn't fit the bill. So if he didn't get an interview, how big of a candidate was he?
he had.
Well, he interviewed with the search
Yeah,
firm.
but
Yeah, he didn't
Not
get the
the
committee
committee.
interview, he got
Correct.
the firm, which
Correct.
that's
Right.
we'll be discussing that in overtime as to what the difference was between the firm, the committee, and then the smaller committees that broke off from that. But the interesting thing about Blackburn, I wonder how much of that was just boosters talking out of school, because I think a lot of this was for 5.5 months. And we report what the boosters say. I think they thought they had more power than they did in this, but you had some people that were against Blackburn. We heard that there was some pushback. So I'm not sure if he was ever a real candidate with Beverly Davenport, but I wonder if he was ever a real candidate with because the story from the Philip Fulmer camp is he wouldn't have gotten involved if he didn't think that Blackburn wasn't a candidate. Jimmy, you think he was a real candidate at any point in this thing?
Boy, this thing was so fluid. I'm going to say at one point he was, with a number of some of the people that were boosters ended up being on the committee, okay?
Yeah.
Like Charlie Anderson. I think
Jimmy
there were
Haslam.
some of them, right. I think some of them would have been fine with him, but at some point, obviously, didn't they talk to the chancellor? And she said, we want somebody from a Power 5. I think that eliminated David Blackburn.
Very good. 10
For-
seconds.
if the fans can get over it, Philip Fulmer was in Ray Mears' room yesterday. So he's kind of even moving on and being there and
There you go.
supportive of the basketball program. A couple days after not getting the job, I think we as in the public can be able to move on and get behind John Currie.
That's a positive step. And I don't blame him for not being at the press conference. That would have been pretty raw to go to the press conference. But my guess is he will fall in line behind the university that he loves. That's my guess, which would be a big step. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about we got 8 rapid fire topics based on this search. Come on back quickly.